The meeting is called to order at 7:04 p.m. Please rise and the clerk will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right. Oh, here we go. May I have a motion and a second that the agenda of October 23rd, 2018 be approved as submitted? Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. All right. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda to include the approval of the minutes of October 9th, 2018 as submitted, acceptance of recommendations from the Committee on Special Education, acceptance of recommendations from the Committee on Preschool Special Education, acceptance of recommendations from the Superintendent for personnel changes, request to approve the recommended bidders as printed on your agenda, request to approve the recommended bidders on item 6 of the agenda here, and approval of request to dispose of unserviceable textbooks. Motion and a second, please.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. All right. Attached is this, the Treasurer's Report for the month ending August 31st, 2018. May I have a motion and a second that the Treasurer's Report, including the cash report, General Fund cash report, the General Fund Revenue Status Report, General Fund Budget Status Report, School Lunch Fund Cash Report, and School Lunch Fund Revenue and Expense Budget Report for the month ending August 31st, 2018 be approved?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. No special reports tonight? No visitors tonight? Okay. Student rep, Levia. Hi.
Hello. Okay, to start off this report at Harris Hill, in Mrs. Nicole's class, they learned about patterns and rhythms doing the Kinder Polka right in the classroom. Mrs. McCormick's class combined handwriting and yoga, a strange combination, making shapes of the letters with their bodies. Oh. Mrs. Lorenzo's class learned about landforms using Play-Dohs for hands-on building. At Cobbles, first graders stretched in the gym working on their physical fitness. At Indian Landing, fifth graders from Mrs. Hulbert's class worked on their typing skills using the Typing Club program. Students in Mrs. Meyer's third grade class reviewed how to use multiplication and division to solve word problems in small groups. At Scribner, students in first through third grade were taught many tips on how to take quality pictures with the professional photography workshop. Second grade students in Mrs. Apthorp's class worked with Mrs. Watterson to investigate what plants need in order to survive. And third graders learned all about instrumental improvisation from the music teacher, Mrs. Fletcher. At Bay Trail, eighth graders threw eggs at each other in the eighth grade egg toss. Students participated in Bay Trail Idol, doing a great job singing and competing. At Penfield High School, Hunter Dunlap, a sophomore, unfortunately passed away due to leukemia, which united the students to support one another through the tough times. Students in Living Environment used chemical testing to solve the case of the missing iPad. Students in Mrs. Bellaire's Global 2 Honors class held an Enlightenment Coffee House simulation. NHS members painted and carved many pumpkins in the Pumpkin Palooza, and we had many successful sports team make it to sectionals, including our undefeated girls field hockey team.
Nice.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Board members, any questions or comments for Levia? Wow, everyone's busy. I would have liked to have been part of, I know. I would have liked to have been part of that, or at least a fly on the wall during that yoga handwriting class.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Like, I'm wondering if they put people together rather than try to, okay, configure. That would be interesting to it just caught me. Thanks so much, Levia. Okay, superintendent's report.
Okay, so this evening, all right, my clicker's not working, so maybe Jim could click for me down there. Thank you. So this evening we have a student and staff honors. I have a few to share. I'll go over to Dr. Sansucci after for the budget calendar review, and then we have Tom Zuber here for our audit report. And then over to Jim Pfeiffer, who will be talking about the summary of Superintendent's Conference Day. We talked about this at the last meeting because it was that day, but just a little bit more formal presentation. And then Jim is going to also go over the 3-8 assessment data summary. You give me the next slide, that'd be great. Thanks. So another perfect score. Last board meeting, we talked about some perfect scores, and Penfield High School is proud to celebrate another student who had a perfect score on his ACT exam. So congratulations to Jackson Vogt on this incredible achievement. And the Penfield Education Foundation 5K, one of our thank you, Kevin, for getting me a new clicker. All the behind-the-scenes action here that happens at our exciting board meetings. The Penfield Education Foundation is a newer partner with Penfield, and this was the second 5K that was ran, second annual 5K. And it was this past Sunday, October 14th. Huge success. It raised just over $11,000. So we just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the foundation and the board to the over 300 runners and walkers who participated and the 105 Team Penfield members who supported this race. And I also just want to point out to the community that this is actually a picture of myself to the left, the superintendent, and 2 school board members. So one, I think, is John Piper, whose birthday happens to be today. And the other one, I won't make you guess. Maybe I should make you guess on who that is.
Gee.
But that would be...
I was at a wedding in Pennsylvania. So.
that would be Mr. John Otney, who was very excited to don the Patriot costume.
Good.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, but John did a great job.
I did the 5K, but he went the extra mile wearing that outfit.
Yeah.
If you look closely on your screen, you'll see that I'm held together by KT tape.
Oh, yes.
Underneath
Oh,
everything else.
jeez.
So, but it was a great event.
Oh, that's wonderful.
You did a nice job, and we appreciate all the support of folks coming out in the community. Lots of sponsorships and lots of community organizations that were able to come out. And really, the weather was great, and we had a nice turnout, and it was a really nice day. So thank you. Penfield Patriot Sports Booster donation. One of our other partners, obviously, is our sports boosters. And so just a thank you to the boosters who have generously donated a windscreen banner for the track. These images aren't great, but you can see down below, this is actually a neighboring district has one, and it is a sort of a bit of mesh plastic or vinyl that goes around the track, and it actually helps block the wind for when our runners are running on the track for our track events. And so up top, it's kind of tough to see, but that will be the design. So it's Penfield. It's got our Penfield Eagle, our Penfield Patriot, and it'll go all around the track. So it will involve. So thank you to the sports boosters, and just a reminder that they over the last few years have really sort of cleaned up the process. So they run these donations by district office in the board first, so you get to see it. And also in this case, I made sure to get our director of facilities, Alan McNiff, in the loop, because it will involve his crew putting it up and taking it down, because you don't want to leave it up all winter because the wear and tear. And so they were gracious enough to say we can make this happen. And when we look at our donations, we want to make sure that it doesn't add more work for other people without talking to those individuals. And we also want to make sure that it's what I would refer to as the nice to haves, not essential for education, essential for learning, because that's really the responsibility of the district to pick up the tabs for those. So again, just thank you for the sports boosters for partnering with us. Very exciting. Every year I get to talk a little bit about School Board Recognition Week, and so all week long is School Board Recognition Week. So I just wanted to take a moment to officially thank all of our school board members. It's really time to promote awareness of the important work performed by our board members with students as their primary focus. And for the community out there, please know that what our board members do, just a snapshot, is create a shared vision for the future of education in Penfield. They set the direction of the district to achieve the highest student performance. They provide accountability for student achievement and results. They develop a fiscally responsible budget and present it to the community. They always make sure to align district resources to improve achievement, and they support a healthy school district culture in which to work and to learn, and so much more, because one thing that I always brag about with my superintendent friends is our board's focus on development of the whole student, and always putting students first, not just their academic achievement, but also their social and emotional growth as we prepare them not just for how they want to be when they walk across the stage, but using words of Ken Ginsberg, our recent presenter to our district, is really thinking about how you're preparing students for when they're 35. And so that starts in kindergarten with our social emotional work and our development of the whole student. So I just want to say thank you to the board. You do have a gift in front of you. You have some delicious cookies with the Penfield symbol on them, but also you have some books that are, there's 8 books and 2 secondary level books, or sorry, 2 books that are intermediate, so grades 4 and 5, and 2 books that are more K1, 2, 3. And these books are going to be put into all of our 4 elementary libraries, and if you get an opportunity to open up the book, there is a dedication with your name on there, and Levia, you are included in that, so we really appreciate that, and your name is on one of those books. Each board member's name is on one of those books. So as students in Penfield take these books out of the library for years to come, they'll be reminded of the school board members who volunteered countless hours to make sure that they have a world-class education and development here in Penfield. So on behalf of myself and the entire district, I just want to say thank you to our board members, and a quick round of applause for all the work that you guys do.
Thank you. Wow. These are beautiful. Thank you.
And I will share is that I was speaking with John Piper recently, and he shared that one of his neighbors actually came over to say that their child took out a book from the library and it had John's name in it. So people really do notice it, and it's wonderful. There's War and Peace. So thank you to the board very, very much.
Thank you.
And that was I think that was my last slide. And so I will turn it over to the audit report, I believe.
Yes, it is.
think
Thank you very
Now
much.
you
So I just want to begin, also tonight, we just want to review budget calendar, and so I took advantage of that to just remind the board that tonight we're hearing, in just a moment, I'll ask Mr. Zuber to come up to the table, and he will present for you the audit report for last year, for the 17-18 school year. So the board knows, and I think that if people thought about it, they would understand, but it's sort of easy to overlook that we're always in the financial end of the district operating in 3 years. So we're just finishing the work of last year, and so this is a budget. This is really a budget item. How did we do last year? Where did we finish up? It's appropriate to talk about that as we begin the process of planning next year's budget while we're operating in this year. So we always have the 3 years going at the same time. So tonight will be at the last meeting, we began our process accepting or establishing the budget calendar. Tonight we'll hear, and hopefully the board will accept the audit report, and then we'll continue through the months of November, December, and January. So some planning work, some more pre-work is going to happen in November when we look at goals, assumptions, and guidelines. In December, we'll look at tax cap and do a little bit of forecasting and talk about our reserves and reserve planning. And then really by January, we need to begin the hard work of the budget itself. So we'll begin with a review of the administrative components of the budget in January. But before I go on to what else happens, I'd like to ask Mr. Zuber to come up you are used to hearing at this meeting Mr. Wagger. I think it's great that we have this opportunity to realize that Ray Wagger CPA is not just Ray. And in fact, Mr. Zuber is also a partner in that firm. Ray had a conflict, otherwise he would have made it. But it's great. It gives the board a chance to see a fresh face and to hear from someone new. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Tom, to talk a little bit about where we're at. The board has the management letter, the full financials, as well as Ray's executive summary. So it's up to you.
Great. Thank you, Mark. And thank you for inviting me here tonight to present the 2018 audited financial statement and management letter. And as Mark indicated, this really is the result of a process that the Board of Education, the school district, started almost 2 years ago, and we're finally seeing the financial results of that particular process. So, we did meet with the audit committee back on October 11th. We had a very good discussion with the audit committee. We spent 30 to 40 minutes reviewing the financial statements and internal control communication. We talked about year-over-year variances. We talked about budget variances. We talked about reserve accounts, fund balance. We talked about internal controls and checks and balances. So we did have a very, very good meeting and had a lot of good discussion. Again, we did issue an unqualified opinion, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. So that is really the audit opinion that you're looking for, that the financial statements are good. That's the standard opinion that you would be looking for. The district continues to be in good financial condition. We evaluate that or see that when we look at the district reserve and fund balances and how the district communicates and monitors the different reserves and fund balances that you have. And again, you do an excellent job in not only the development and utilization, but also the communication of the different reserves that the school district has. So again, very, very positive from the financial statement aspect of it. In addition to the audited financial statements, we did talk a little bit about the internal controls, the checks and balances. With any financial statement audit, we do look at the different internal controls, checks and balances that the school district has over the financial operations. And again, pleased to report there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. We did talk about a few minor procedural items that the district has implemented corrective action on. And we also talked about some prior items that have been implemented corrective action. So again, very positive from the financial statement standpoint. So overall, we did meet with the audit committee. Again, a very good discussion, and the district continues to be in good financial condition.
Okay. Board members, any questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you.
Mr. Zuber, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that audit report, I just want to finish a quick review for both the board and the public of where we're at then with regard to our budget scheduling. In January, we've set aside, it's not confirmed yet, but we've set aside some time for a potential board work session around budget. We'll begin the process of instructional program review for the special areas of the budget, the staff development, special education, counselors, and so on, in January. February's capital, and we finish with the instructional portions of the budget at the second February meeting. BOCES and a review of the annual notice in March, and then really the first review of the entire budget put together along with revenues, fund balance, uses of reserves, and so forth occurs at that March meeting. The deadline for petitions for board candidates is April 22nd, as well as a deadline for potential budget petitions. Because we then need to adopt, the board has to approve and adopt the budget at the April 23rd meeting. so that we can meet our timelines, our legal advertising and notice timelines, to be able to have our public meeting on May 7th and have the vote on May 21st. So the vote is May 21st at the high school between the hours of 6 to 9. That's just a quick review of that. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Board members? No?
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mark.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Mr. Pfeiffer for the next couple of presentations around our superintendent's conference and also our 3 through 8 assessment.
Thank you, Tom. We last met actually on the Superintendent's Conference Day on October 9th, and Tom did give you a brief bit of information, but the reason, just so the public knows again, the reason that Superintendent's Conference Day took place on a Tuesday rather than the Friday that we usually do is we really wanted to bring in a specific presenter to work with our staff around our social emotional goals and efforts that we're really digging into beginning this year, and that is Dr. Ken Ginsberg. He wasn't available. He was actually working in one of our neighboring districts on the typical Friday Superintendent's Conference Day, so we thought the next best thing was to move it to a Tuesday. And so we did have Dr. Ginsberg in on Tuesday the 9th. We had an all-staff presentation that included all teachers, administrators, hall monitors, paraprofessionals, and clerical were invited to attend if they wish here in the high school auditorium, where Dr. Ginsberg reviewed trauma-informed instruction practices and other psychologically safe classroom practices that can be implemented in pretty short order. Just how can we really build relationships with students and really tied that to a great deal of brain science and biology to really give us the science behind why these things work and why they can help us help meet kids' needs and meet them where they are and take them to where they need to be. We then had an administrative lunch for an hour with Dr. Ginsberg, which was a nice conversation. We might set the room up a little bit differently next time, but we appreciate the efforts of the high school and organizing the lunch and having everything ready for us here. Sherry Smith and Leslie Maloney and the tech team and everybody who was involved in setting everything up did a great job. We just needed to make the setup a little bit more collaborative, I think, for that part of the conversation if we do something like that again. We then had an afternoon session with building level teams with most of our administrators and selected staff members who they felt would be really able to help move this type of initiative forward, and folks who might be struggling to accept that this is the direction that we might need to go in some cases. And so we had about 90 or so staff in the afternoon for another almost 3 hours with Dr. Ginsberg, taking a much deeper dive into more specific topics related to that effort. And then after that, the administrative team got together here in the library classroom and took a look at, took some time to reflect on the day with Dr. Ginsberg and really take a look at what does that mean for us and what were the big takeaways from that day with him. We then took that information and went through a review protocol around, so what are those big takeaways and what do they mean for us moving forward in terms of an action plan around social emotional learning and well-being here in the district? We have 4 key areas that we really looked at as a result of our work with the Children's Institute: the explicit instruction, teacher and classroom practices, school and district practices, and district policies. And so we broke into heterogeneous groups of administrators and took those that thinking and applied it to each of those 4 categories. And each group had an opportunity for input into what does that mean? What does your big takeaway mean in terms of that particular area? We all went around and did that, and then they went back and translated that into an action step for each of those areas. So we were then able to take that information, and I was able to take that back and input it into the draft of the action plan that is being developed at this time. So a really powerful and meaningful day, and then we finished up that and we came in and met with you folks that evening. So it was a day a lot like today. So our next steps, we actually have, in addition to that, Tom and I actually, and Scott Dreschler, Director of Special Ed and PPS, met with the folks from the Children's Institute who had conducted this, the study last year and shared information at our summit and opening day, and met with them to discuss next steps and provided them with a draft of the action plan to get their feedback on, so that we're really putting this thing through its paces before we bring it back to our stakeholder groups internally as well. So that's moving along nicely. As always, we put out a survey to all staff regarding the Superintendent's Conference Day to get their feedback on the day. I usually ask them to give me a Likert scale rating on a 1 to 5. We had about 244 responses and a 4.7 out of 5 stars for the day. Teachers really were really captivated, I think, and engaged with Dr. Ginsberg's work. And as always, for some folks, they had part of the day to dig into some team time, department time, and they enjoyed the opportunity to be able to get some things done in that regard as well. So positive feedback from the staff. As always, everybody wants more time. One way or another, people would always like to have more time, whether it's time with their team, time with with an expert in a particular field, any of those things. And so we'll continue to take that into consideration in planning future superintendent's conference days. Are there any questions about the conference day?
Lisa?
Just make a comment. I was at the Bay Trail PTA meeting, and I sent a summary to the board, but I don't think you guys were on that. But the teacher actually, I think it's Karen Graham, if I have her name correctly, actually spoke about the conference day and how empowering it was, and shared it with the parents. And that's kind of the first time in my tenure doing these meetings that a teacher's really talked about a superintendent's conference day and shared it. So I just thought that was really interesting feedback to bring back to you guys about that day. And she also kind of went a little further and talked about the kinds of little grassroots things that they're trying to do as teachers to bring in social emotional learning. And it was just very positive. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sounds like the setup and the format was a pretty positive way of going about it, breaking up the time with him.
Yes.
and having lunch with him.
Yep.
And all that. That is amazing. I didn't realize that's how it was, how the whole thing was organized for that day.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well, that
I-
was Dr. Putnam's brainchild, so he deserves
Nice.
full credit for thinking that that's the best way to flow the day, and it went very well.
Oh, that sounds great. Are you going to let us know what you come up with the Children's Institute? or-
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm
Absolutely.
sure parents, when we go to our meetings, they're going to want to know
Sure.
what the final takeaway. And
Oh,
action
sure,
plan.
yes.
Okay, great. Sounds great. Wish I was there.
It was
Thanks.
good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, on to an update for the board. The embargo on 3 through 8 assessment data has been lifted, so I can share with you some information around our results. Before we get into those results, I want to reference an article that was in your most recent onboard newspaper by Commissioner Elia regarding comparisons of results from this year to prior years. They've been very explicit, New York State Ed, BOCES, Mars, very, very explicit and cautioning anyone from really digging in too much into comparisons year over year because of the changes that we've talked about several times here and to those assessments. And just to review those again, we had the first year where we had assessments that were developed solely by Questar Assessment Corporation with input from New York State teachers. So that is a good thing that we've wanted, is that we want teachers and more involved in these questions and make sure they're more reliable and more appropriate for students. But in addition to that, we had the first time that in a long time that this test has been reduced from 3 days to 2, and it was shortened to an extent in terms of not only days but number of items to which the kids had to respond on both math and ELA. And then in our case, we also had the addition of implementing math computer-based testing 3 through 8. And on both sides, ELA and math, we outsourced our scoring. So instead of having teachers out either for a full conference day for our 3, 4, and 5 assessments, and then over multiple days for our 6, 7, and 8 assessments, we outsourced that scoring. And again, we did a careful cost analysis of that, and we figured that after BOCES aid, it was a wash. The aid back to the district more than covered that cost of outsourcing that scoring. We're planning to move forward with that again. So that's a lot of moving parts to consider when we're looking at assessments year over year and making comparisons. That being said, I think you're going to see that our results are still very, very strong. Here's a quick summary here where you can see we skip one. Can you go back one for me?
So,
Yeah, there we go. So our ELA results first, 3, 4, and 5. You can see first across is Penfield's. These are proficiency percentages, so the percent of students who actually took the exam and earned either a level 3 or a level 4. And then in parentheses there is our rank in New York State and where we rank, and then the New York State proficiency percentage below that. And then down below in those areas, you see our trend data. And again, this is where we want to exercise caution in terms of comparing year over year. But comparatively speaking, we're not seeing a massive change in our trend here. And in many cases, when you look at these in a more minute manner and you're looking at the percentages, we're talking either a few percentage points or even sometimes tenths of percentage points that are separating us from our component districts here in BOCES. So comparatively, very, very positive results here on the ELA assessments. In terms of math, same setup. And again, our results, we've got a little bit of a shift, especially at grade 5, where I think in grade 3 in terms of mastery, which is again percentage of students who achieve the highest level, just a level 4, proficiency is again a 3 and a 4. And then when we look at proficiency for Math 5, one of the things that we have seen with CBT, and we were thinking about this, is the ability for students to show their work on a computer in a computer environment without drawing tools available. There are drawing tools available that are supposed to be ready for this year's round of assessments, but we would need to be able to outfit all students with touchscreen capability and the appropriate devices in order to take advantage of that. We don't have sufficient devices yet. As we continue to roll over devices and provide the type of devices that you have to our schools, eventually we see ourselves being able to do that, but we'll continue to give kids practice opportunities through some of our other online assessment tools to get that up to speed. So that was one challenge that we noticed, but again, the reason we felt it was strongly about moving forward with CBT is right now, this is as low stakes as these are ever going to get, right? They don't count for students. They're not on their permanent record. They don't count for teachers and principals in terms of APPR and evaluation. And we know that New York State is continuing to push toward moving toward completely online testing in the near future. They've still said that they're looking at 2021 is their target date, but we'll see how that goes because there's other changes coming with those assessments at that time as well, and APPR changes. So, so we'll see what happens with that. Thank you, Mark. Science 4 results are very strong, with 98% of our students achieving proficiency and 72% achieving mastery, and strong rankings there across. This is one where you're talking tenths of a percentage point separating districts. This assessment has not changed in many, many years. Our teachers know how to prepare students for this assessment and to do well on this assessment, and we still do have a number of students who opt out even of the science assessments. Moving on to 6 through 8, same data setup. Comparatively, we're still performing very, very well for the first year, and again, going back to these changes and being cautious about comparing year over year. This is like the race starting all over again. We had a few years where the tests were pretty similar and we were all kind of jockeying for positions and comparing ourselves to our component districts and splitting those hairs, and here it kind of starts anew. I was tempted to only put this year's on, but I figured you'd ask a lot of questions and I might as well just put them on there anyway so you could see the data from the year before. Same there, and then if we go on to math results, still performing very, very well. One of the big jumps that we saw there is our Math 8 students. Remember that in Math 8, typically our strongest math students don't take the Math 8 exam. They take the algebra exam in 8th grade. And usually, you can see the trend data there. So a big jump for our 8th graders who are not taking algebra, and we don't double test those kids. They don't take both exams, both the Regents and the New York State exam. They would only take the Regents. Having said that, before I go on to science, there is no Regents exam data included in this. Typically, I would share with you at least the Bay Trail results, but the embargo is still in place for Regents data, so we'll be getting you that data at a later date once that embargo is lifted. Thank you, Mark. Science 8. The trend data is pretty stable there, a little bit of improvement in our mastery. Again, this assessment hasn't changed, and we're in another situation here where typically our stronger science students are taking the Living Environment Regents exam, and we don't double test. They wouldn't also take this exam, so we're doing there. So in terms of key findings, I would say again that our comparative results are positive despite the changes to the assessment, and it's interesting too because when we're comparing all of those things, different districts engaged in computer-based testing and or scoring services in different places. Some districts computer-based tested for ELA and then didn't for math, or some did for math as we didn't for ELA. Some used a scoring service, some didn't. So while the common variable is that we all had to take the new test, the other variables that aren't necessarily common is who used which format of testing, who used a scoring service, who didn't. We haven't seen a huge dip, I think, in anything, so I'm not overly concerned about either the testing format or the use of a scoring service. I think that was a win for us in terms of instructional time in the classroom and having our teachers back here. We're continue to see the positive influences of the insured focus on learning and all of its elements. I won't name them all at this time because I think you all know them. But also of our RTI model. We continue to work very hard to reach all of our kids where they are and get them to where they need to be successful, not only on these assessments, but on our internal assessments, and have them prepared to be successful in the grade levels that will come. The questions we have are those things that we just talked about. It's still very difficult to understand the impact of refusals because it's not any one population of students, whether it's students who we think would do well or students who might struggle. It's across the board when we talked about refusals and opt-outs. We were again at about 12% or so at the elementary level and about 23% at the middle school level. So we were actually down from prior years, which was good. I hope that the state continues to move forward with the things that they've promised so that we can keep that trend moving down and have more valid data to use for instructional decision-making purposes moving forward. We don't know the impact yet of those test revisions, and in a couple of years as we shift to the New York State Next Generation Learning Standards, we're going to see revisions and changes again. So this is going to be really the only thing that's going to be consistent is change for the next few years in terms of assessments. Again, CBT was new for our children this year. We're planning on moving forward again with CBT 3 through 8 for math, and then also layering on 6 through 8 ELA. And we feel those students have the keyboarding skills that are sufficient at this point to go ahead and give that a shot while it's still a fairly low stakes for them and for our staff. And we'll see how they do, and then we'll have had 2 years of keyboarding instruction for our younger students and look to layer on maybe some of the younger grades, the 3 through 5 in the following year, so that everybody's done it at least once before the potential turn where we have a new APPR system and the potential for testing to be included in APPR once again. So we'll see what happens there. And again, outsourced scoring seems to be very positive. We're very happy with that. So what are opportunities for improvement? Assessment is a way that we can always become more efficient. We're doing a lot of work through the 3-year professional development program with Monroe One BOCES called MAP, which is the Monroe Assessment Project, where we've really dug into our assessment practices, especially specifically around formative assessment, which is really more useful in terms of learning and driving instruction, and how teachers can ensure that their assessments are aligned to their learning targets and that they're giving very targeted feedback to support student growth in that regard. How are we using that? How are we capturing data from that, along with our consistency in terms of common assessments from across the district to help drive instructional decision making. And then also continuing to look out, search out and provide our teachers with professional development around the most effective research and evidence-based instructional strategies. The best intervention we can give our kids is good first instruction. And so the more we can do that, the less we have to rely on intervention. And we continue to search out those methods and provide that professional development to our teachers and then help them implement that in the classroom. So our actions, we're going to continue to implement those research-based instructional strategies. We're going to continue to refine our RTI model. Prior to my coming here even, we've spent a lot of time learning from the work of the Dufours and Mike Matos and other experts in the area of RTI. And we've got a very robust system to provide support to our students, but we still have opportunities to improve that system and do a better, more efficient job in that regard. We're continuing to focus on that and look at how we can improve our RTI systems along with our good first instruction to do the best job that we can for students. And we're going to continue to prepare our students for changes in the assessment, including computer-based testing coming up this spring, and they'll be ready to go. So we're excited about that.
Board members, Bill.
I just wanted to say that if you have kids in the district, you get a piece of paper in the mail. And when you open that up and you look at it and you see how specifically your child has done, the striking thing is how competitive we really are. And it was kind of shocking at first in such a good way that we really are. The teachers are preparing these kids. They know exactly the direction in which they're heading. And the point you made, I think, about teacher input on questions and having that happen so that they can create quality written standards-based questions that get to what it is we want to know these kids are learning. I appreciate that, seeing that as a parent.
Thank you. And I want to be clear that, as I walk around, I visit about 300 classrooms every school year. And probably, because of just the nature of it, a majority of those are probably more at the elementary school level. And what our teachers are not doing is test prep. By and large, for the vast majority of the time, what our teachers are focused on is teaching kids how to think, how to read, how to write, how to compute, how to reason, how to problem solve. We will look at release test questions, and we will use that to ensure that we have an understanding of what the state views a standard to look like, and we will use that to craft instruction so that we are teaching kids to think, but what we're not doing is sitting kids down on a large-scale basis and having them practice test questions in order to achieve these results, and I think that is hugely important for the public to know. It's not what we're about, because it's about so much more in terms of preparing them for the future, not just success on that snapshot in one moment in time piece of data.
Yeah, I think there's a quick way to get to where you want to get to, but then there's the way that provides the most value and long-term
Yep.
holding on to information, and again, as you said, having the skills that you can apply going forward.
Thank you.
You know, just jumping off of that point, if they're not, you know, teaching to the test kind of thing, and then if you think about what Dr. Ginsburg was saying about preparing the students for when they're 35, I mean, you can see how that is so beneficial, because if all you're doing is like, give me what I need to know, and then, because you're not taking it in for lifelong learning, and that is one of our goals, you know. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thanks, Jim.
I'll just say though,
Oh,
the
okay, John.
real quick, the RTI, I think, seeing it firsthand with my little ones, it's the standard. It's like it's a non-event now. It's just part of their daily routine, whether it's if they need help or to be challenged. So I think that is really solid and working very well. And I mean, you guys are doing a great job. This is a moving target, the standards. So I think these results are we should be proud of those.
Yeah,
We are. Thank you.
I think so too. Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That concludes superintendent reports for the evening.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. All right. Let me just see where we are. Okay, so we're on item 5, nothing for facilities. So we go to financial items, the audit report. Okay. The recommended action is that the audit report for the year ending June 30th, 2018 be accepted. The audit has been previously presented. The agenda item includes acceptance of the audit as well as management responses to 2 minor audit comments. So may I have a motion and a second? Excuse me. There we go. Motion and a second. God bless you. That the audit by, it was Tom Zuber on behalf of Raymond F. Wager, CPA, PC, of the district's basic financial statements and the associated management letter for the year ended June 30th, 2018 be accepted.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. Okay. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education appoint EFPR Group as the district's internal auditor for the 5-year period beginning July 1st, 2018? And the contract, or excuse me, the content of those services is on your, it's an attachment there, as you can see, on the agenda. So may I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. All right. All right. We have donations. Donations totaling $2,533 for items in the 2018-19 budget were received by the district schools as shown. Rochester Regional Photonics Cluster for the high school, $500. Indian Landing Elementary PTO for buddy benches, $1,383. Action for Healthy Kids for Harris Hill Elementary, $650. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve an amendment totaling $2,533 to the 2018-19 budget as shown above. The amount submitted both as revenue and expenditure items, and express its gratitude to the donors for the generous support of Penfield schools.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. Okay. All right, hold on. Okay. Per Commissioners' regulations, it is necessary to readopt the Penfield Audit Committee charter each year. The charter was amended to reflect the addition of an additional board member as an alternate member and was adopted by the committee at their October 11, 2018 meeting. The charter was given to the Board of Education prior to this meeting for review. May I have a motion and a second that the Penfield Audit Committee charter be approved as submitted?
So moved.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. All right. We have a second reading and approval with a public apology to poor Dr. Putnam. May I have a motion and a second that policy 4260, evaluation of the superintendent and other administrative staff, be approved as presented, which was discussed at our last meeting?
Moved.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, our committee meetings. John, do you want to take that, please? John Otney?
Sure. The steering committee, Monroe County School Board Association steering committee met on Wednesday, October 10th, and we cleaned up some old business. One was actually to adopt a sexual harassment policy for the employees of the Monroe County School Boards Association, which there are only 3, but that's a mandate, but it's still an important item.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got the standard treasurer's report. Everything is good there. Old business, we're still reviewing steps towards trying to identify if there's not a large group of folks that want to volunteer to run for boards of education, trying to kind of pool our minds and thoughts together to go out into the community and recruit. And then we had some new business items. There were a couple position papers and bringing on Victor into the Monroe County School Boards Association as a full membership. So, and then a few committee reports, which there really wasn't anything new. There were a few items that we've talked about among ourselves over the last 2 meetings from the committees that we all are on. And then on Wednesday, October 17th, the Information Exchange Committee met to discuss school safety. We had 3 presenters. We briefly discussed this already. One presenter was from Campus Construction to discuss hardening of school facilities or buildings, which Penfield does a great job. A lot of these topics that they brought up, Penfield's already doing. So that was really nice to see. And then Sheriff Todd Baxter briefed the group on SROs, a few specifics on the SRO program and his support for it, and then just some other questions came up regarding the SRO program that were answered. And then Neil Flood from the Webster Central School District discussed mandated school drills, whether it be fire drills, lockdown drills, et cetera, and gave some ideas to the group on how to better use or better, I guess, implement school safety plans and drills. The next information exchange meeting is on Wednesday, November 14th, and that's defending your district against social media attacks. So it's could be relevant. I don't know how often we are faced with that, but depending on the flavor of the month, we don't know. So.
Right. All right. Thanks, John. Any questions for John on that, on either of those?
I will say, Bill and I attended our Penfield Audit Committee for the first time. I don't know about Bill, but I genuinely enjoyed that committee meeting.
John,
it was really great.
It was actually quite a bit better than I anticipated.
No, I really like.
John, I think you enjoy everything about this job.
That's right. So anyway,
I think that's great.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's you know, it's one of the comments I've made before when certain groups come up and give their presentation. You know, most recently, Alan was one where you send your kids to school and you don't think in terms about the inner workings of a whole district and how this district runs. And one of those things is how we, you know, hold ourselves accountable with our audit committee and with the people we work with and the close scrutiny we put ourselves under. It's just one of those components about how we run things around in the Penfield district. And another thing that the general public and parents of the students just do not give any thought
Right.
to. But it's quite important.
Sure is.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, good, good. That's great. Okay. NISBA proposed resolutions. Lisa, did you want to say anything about that?
I'm going to pull up my email. I think you guys all got my email, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and Mark and Bill came to this meeting, so if I messed something up or whatever, you guys can jump in for me. So there's 20 resolutions total. 18 were recommended and 2 are not recommended by the resolutions committee. Do you guys, I guess first, do you have any questions about the ones that I didn't really think there's, so 1, 2, 4, 5, 7 through 18, a good majority of them I think are pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So I think the first question is there any discussion about those? Because there's a couple I think we need to discuss. If there's any questions, okay. So then, Resolution 3 was not supported in its original form, but was supported in its proposed amendment form. So Resolution 3 is the one about safety. So I'm going to switch back and forth. I'll pull it up and read it for you guys. It was supported by the resolution committee, but was not supported at our Area 2 meeting. Am I saying that correct, Mark? Is that correct? Right? It was supported by the New York State Resolutions Board, but not at our Area 2 meeting.
And this is which one?
Let me get there. Hold on. Number 3.
Yeah, give me
Okay, so number 3.
Title, please.
Yes, sorry. Is that says that they support legislation to improve school safety by reducing access to guns. So that was
That was the
Right,
one that,
right.
in the original format, the resolution committee did not approve it. I mean, sorry, they did approve
They
it, but it was
did.
very close.
It was very
It was
close.
a split decision. And then the proposed amendment that will come to the floor at the meeting, at the business meeting, is something that gained a lot more favor.
Right,
And
that's what we
it was,
thought.
I think,
So-
almost unanimous. I think it wasn't quite unanimous at our
At our
at
meeting.
our meeting.
Right. So the amended version says that NISBA will support all efforts to improve school safety by limiting or reducing unauthorized access to guns in schools.
Unauthorized access.
Right.
Right.
So if everybody's good with that, I will be voting not for the first one, but for the second one.
Right, for the amended one.
If the
For the
amendment
amended one,
passes.
if it passes.
Right. If you have that opportunity to
Yes.
vote on it.
So do people feel comfortable with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's that one. And then the Medicaid one we all sort of talked about. I think I'm going to be proposing it on the floor, the amendment, but if the first one's fine too. I mean, it's just really expanding, supporting the funding, and thank you to Sharon and Tom. They helped me put some stuff together. So, and I'm going to be chasing Mark out to make sure I know what I'm talking about. So, so that's that one. And then the other one that was sort of up for contention at our meeting was Resolution 6. So this is the one that is mandating kindergarten.
Right.
And this was supported by the resolution committee, but was not really, I think a lot of us abstained, I guess, at our Area 2 meeting. And it says supports proposals making kindergarten attendance mandatory at the state level.
Right.
So I guess the big 5 schools all have a waiver anyway. And our discussion at Area 2 was really around parent choice and local control. I'm not really in favor of it. We sort of talked a little bit about doing an amendment, but it just kind of didn't happen. So I don't know if you want to
So
say
and this is the conversation we had at our meeting, the same one at the resolution committee. Local control, what you see at the business meetings is that different parts of the state, the board representatives at the business meeting have wildly different perspectives based on their locality. And what makes perfect
Right.
sense to us doesn't to them, and what they say just doesn't resonate with us.
Yeah, we see that just in the Monroe County districts
Right.
anyway, yeah.
And so when, right, so beyond that, so with that, the idea of us, of the New York State School Board Association mandating that all districts have this violates that tenet of local control, which is what makes most sense to us.
Right.
Versus downstate or, rural districts or urban districts. So whether or not it's a good idea is not as much the issue as much as should we say everybody must do this.
Yeah.
And that's why it doesn't have really the support.
The support, yeah.
And I think
Okay.
there's a lot of what we want. We want to give this, I think local control is a very important part of New York State schools. And I think that's why each district serves its community well, is because we have worked to preserve local control.
Right, okay. Okay,
So, I don't know how you guys feel about how you want to vote on this, or me to represent you. I'm kind of in the no camp, but I want to make sure I'm representing our group.
well,
I would agree.
You will agree?
yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
I think we're in agreement.
okay. Was that wait, was there another one? That might be the last one. No, I think that's it. Resolution 7 or 11, what was 11? Wait, let me look. Resolution 11 was supported in both forms. Oh, so this is about funding for school safety is the proposed resolution, but then there's additional language that's adding a social emotional component and mental health component to that. So I think we were in support of either or both, but I'm not sure. I think we're all in agreement for that, so. Because there's also another resolution separate about social emotional.
There was a
anyway.
number of resolutions.
I mean, that was really the theme. There was a lot of safety, a lot of social emotional, so I think that was good.
Okay.
They're catching up to Tom.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that was really it. I think most of the other ones were pretty straightforward.
Okay, Mark?
I would say that Lisa has kept the tradition of Penfield being very active in resolutions.
Yeah.
For many years, we've had resolutions of our own submitted, and even though we didn't this year, she popped right up at the meeting and talked about the amendment, which was a great amendment. I think everyone immediately thought it was a great idea, and I'm glad that's going to come to the floor and we kind of keep the tradition of Penfield going.
Yeah, great. Kudos to
See
Lisa.
how it
Thank you,
goes.
Lisa. Well, no, that's great. It is. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for saying that, and thanks, Lisa, for the report.
Thank you.
No more questions on that one? All right. Well, gee, I don't know, I could keep you here.
Well,
but-
before you adjourn,
All right.
may I just have a moment?
Absolutely.
This is absolutely unplanned, so I apologize. But, hey, Kevin, the man behind the camera,
Oh, Kevin.
Kevin, can you come out here in front of the camera and make sure that your assistant up there gets you on the camera, however that might work?
I trained them very well to not
All right.
get me on the camera.
You are on the camera tonight, so just on I'll say it in the mic, but on behalf of the board, this is Kevin's last board meeting that he'll be behind the camera. He's done an incredible job stepping in this year and last year, and the set is different, and the microphones are amazing, and lots of sort of pitfalls and ups and downs, and Kevin has always worked amazingly to make sure that we are heard, we are seen, and it always feels very comfortable. So we do not want to see Kevin go, but he is heading off to another district to be unnamed for a position that really is offering him some growth and opportunity. So I just want to let the board know and the community know that I work to try to keep Kevin here, but on the same token, we wish him all the luck. So on behalf of the board and the district, we just got you a little something, Kevin.
Oh,
So,
thank you very much.
So as you can tell from Kevin's response, completely unplanned, and we finally got the man behind the camera in front of the camera. So thanks again, Kevin.
Yes, thank you. Well, that is, I mean, it's kind of, you did that so that we feel happy about that, but it's not exactly.
I'll tell you that I hope Kevin is leaving happy. I had a conversation with him, and
No, I saw a thumbs up
saw
there.
the thumbs up. I never like to lose people in Penfield because it's, I think, just the absolute best district. I've said on camera and off that I'll go toe-to-toe with any superintendent, that we do things better. And I say that as a superintendent, someone who's lived here since I was an assistant principal, and someone who has kids in the district. I love this place, and I know everybody on the board does, and our district office as well, obviously. So I just think, though, that, you know, there are opportunities that come forward, and what a good team does is sad, but then wishes you the best of luck and know that you always got a home in Penfield. But we also want to make sure that people are able to sort of grow and fly and find new opportunities that can bring them different things. So just kudos to Kevin, and we always lose great people for other great reasons.
Yeah.
So, Barb.
I just want to say that in getting ready for the meeting tonight, Kevin, I did happen to see your letter of resignation, and I zeroed right in when you said all that you loved being part of Team Penfield. So that's the exciting part for us, to hear that it really is part of who you are, and thank you for everything that you did.
Yeah, and the team wishes you well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you.
All right, on that note, may I have a motion and a second that the meeting be adjourned at, just a second, please, 8:05 p.m.
So moved.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, thank you.